now I'm just in Campaign Manager, in Seller Central. And so the first thing I'll say about optimization is something that you want to do regularly. Typically, I will be optimizing my accounts and my clients' accounts on a weekly basis. Unless you're spending big bucks, that you don't generally need to jump in every day. If you are finding yourself jumping in every day, then you're essentially just over optimizing, and you're looking at the same data points. Not much is going to change. So my recommendation is just set it for once a week. If it can be the same day every week, make notes on the changes that you make, and then coming back and looking at the data and seeing how that changes based on the changes that you're making. So in terms of data sets, typically, if I'm optimizing an account regularly, then I'll be looking at the last 30 days of data. So you can change the date range here. Got different date ranges that you can set. So 30 days. If you don't look at your account regularly, then if I'm looking at a client's account for the first time, then I might look at a longer date range, say the last 3 months or so, just to get a wider scope, and then compare that back to the last 30 days just to compare. So in terms of the metrics that I like to look at, you've got these up here. You can customize these. So all of these are customizable depending on your goals. But the ones that I typically like to look at is cost spend. How much are you spending? Sales. So this is sales attributed to PPC. It's not your total sales for the month. And then the main one that most people talk about when they're doing Amazon PPC is ACOS. So that's it's short for advertising cost of sales. And that's your ad spend, this one here, divided by your sales or your PPC sales, and reflected as a percentage. So that's your ACOS there. Now, people generally ask me, what's a good or bad ACOS? As a general rule of thumb, I would say around 30%, but again, that's going to depend on your numbers, your profit margin. So as a rule, if you have a profit margin of 30%, then your break-even ACOS, we can say that, well, your break-even ACOS is 30%. So generally we want to be below 30%, where at 30% you would be breaking even, or essentially not making any money. When you are launching PPC campaigns, though, don't be disheartened if your ACOS is high to begin with. Of course, in the beginning, we can do keyword research, we can do things to ensure that we're targeting the right keywords. But at the end of the day, the market will dictate how the keywords perform. So don't be disheartened in the beginning if your ACOS is high. We can employ some of these techniques that I'll show you tonight on how to optimize and keep the campaign running. But overall, Depends campaigns, they're looking quite healthy in terms of the ACOS, which is a very cool problem to have. I would almost say that in terms of the spend, he's only really spending $1 a day. So I would say, if anything, his campaigns are under optimized. We can potentially there's more opportunity to grow in terms of sales, definitely. So that's something that we can look at. And so the spend is only spending less than $1 a day, and then we can change this. So his average cost per click was 50 cents. And so in terms of clicks, he's only getting a couple of clicks a day. So his conversion rate, his ACOS is good. His conversion rate, so we've got 57 clicks for 9 orders. If we do 57 divided by 9. So on average, for every 6 and a bit clicks, he's getting a sale. So quite a good conversion rate there, general conversion rate. So if anything, we can bid more. We can increase the bids, and by increasing the bids, the ads will show higher on the page. More people are going to see the ads. The more people that see the ads, the more people that click. More clicks will equal more sales. We can see as a guide at the moment, he's averaging around, for every 6 clicks, he gets a sale. So we want more of that. So that's a good problem to have. The inverse of that is your ACOS is really high, and generally that's when clients will come to me, when their ACOS is really high, and they'll want strategies for lowering ACOS. And that's when we need to look at things like what keywords are you spending money on, what things like that. But this is actually the inverse problem, which is where the fun starts. But of course, when you do start to increase your bids, then you do need to monitor it, because ACOS can spike. So it's all about testing, making changes, then reviewing those changes, and continuing that process. All right, so now we've sort of got an average we've got our averages in terms of the month. So spend is quite low, ACOS is good, we've worked out the conversion rate, so it's all looking good. Now let's scroll down and just have a look at how that's reflected in the campaigns that he's running. So what you can do is just sort by spend. So you just, if it's not sorted, you can just click the column until it comes up. Now we've got a display campaign here, which is, it's a more advanced campaign that you can do if you have brand registry. That's the one that's getting the most of the spend, but you can actually see here this month it hasn't actually had a sale. So almost $20 here without a sale, whereas we've got a brand campaign here that's had 1 sale. So the average ACOS is 19%, so it is higher than the average. And then you've got this exact match campaign. Again, it's only had 6 clicks, but 2 orders. So quite low ACOS. So you could look at increasing your bids there. So basically the campaign that's spending the most money is not converting, whereas the campaigns that are actually bringing in the sales, we can bid more. So it would be looking at perhaps looking at this display campaign, what are the changes that we can make to refine it. But when you're starting out, generally I would say if you've got a low budget, just start with the sponsored product ads, which are by numbers. It's not this one. That's a sponsored brands. We call them headline ads. These types here. So you can see it's got sponsored here. That's a sponsored products campaign. So generally, they've got video. Video can perform really well. So if you've got a video, you can test those out. You do need to have brand registry. And you've got, generally with these sponsored products, you've got a line at the top, a line at the middle, and towards the end. And then the other type of ad that you can run with sponsored products is the ASIN targeting. So if you click into a competitor, so that's the display ads. So they can work quite well, but it is a more advanced campaign and more advanced strategy. Generally, you use the display for focusing on your best-selling products, especially if you have a lot of variations. Just focus on your best-selling variations and only focusing on your best-performing keywords or your top competitors, the competitors that you've run sponsored product ASIN targeting campaigns for, and you know that you're able to steal a lot of sales from them. Then an extension of that would be to go out and build these display campaigns because you already know that they perform extremely well in an ASIN targeting. So that's the ASIN targeting ad that you can do through sponsored products. So if you don't have brand registry, that's generally the ones that we test out first. And if they work well, then you can look at adding in display. So we'll just click into this one and see what the targeting is. We've got one ad group. We'll click into the ad group. And so the first thing I can see is it looks like all of the variations have been added, which is fine. You can do that in the beginning, but then once you start to get a bit of data, you want to just start to focus down, especially if the ACOS is spiking, then that's when you want to narrow down. So we can sort by spend. We might even go back as far as we can. So looking at all the data since the campaign's been running. So sort by spend. And so this one, I think it's like a dinosaur canvas, 8 clicks. Actually, and the other thing to note with the display campaign is the cost per click in this campaign is much higher than the rest of the campaigns. So again, there's a mismatch here in terms of the actual performance of this campaign and the bid. You're bidding a lot higher for this display campaign, and it might just be because, you know, Amazon suggested that, you know, you bid $1 for these, bid less for the other keywords. But as we start to get more data in, then these are the types of things that you want to look at. Adjusting your bids depending on how it's performing. So you can see here, even though it's had 8 clicks and 1 order, because your cost per click is much higher, that's causing your ACOS to spike. So it's not just about total clicks, it's also about how much you're paying for those clicks that can cause ACOS to spike. So let's just see if there's a trend in terms of, okay, so it was this one, but it might be out of stock. I think it's a mermaid. So what you can do, if you don't do anything else, I would just say, so it's the lifetime of the campaign, it's had 37 clicks for 5 orders, 37. And my maths is really bad when I'm put on the spot. 37 divided by 5, that's 6. So 6. So 6. So it's not, so the conversion rate's not bad, but it's just that cost per click. Your cost per click in this campaign, for whatever reason, is much higher than your average. Your average was 50 cents and you're paying double for this campaign, and it's not converting as well as some of your other campaigns. So at a minimum, I would say reduce your cost per click for this campaign because it's not performing as well. The other thing you could look at is look at your best performing variations and just focus on that. Even if it's just it might be a bit tricky with this one because you might have limited stock for each, but if you can have one campaign, just focus on your bestseller, and then you've got the data for that variation. The other thing that you want to look at is targeting. So, okay, you're targeting the whole category. So that's the other thing I would say with categories. They can work well as think of categories when we're talking about ASIN targeting as like the broad match of ASIN targeting. So you're targeting the whole category, you're targeting everything. So because this campaign isn't performing as well as some of the other campaigns, it might be, as well as reducing the bid, we look at just going after a couple of your best sellers or competitors that if there's other campaigns, ASIN targeting campaigns that you're running that have gotten a lot of sales in the past, then you can just focus on those ASINs instead of the whole category, because targeting whole categories, they tend to be a really good way for Amazon to generate a lot of ad revenue, but not necessarily convert. So where we can, we want to be more targeted. So instead of going after full categories, just go after your top 5 competitors that, in terms of price, similar price, similar amount of reviews, making sure that you've got that competitive advantage and not just targeting everyone, because in most categories, there's always going to be the cheap Chinese competitors that you're not going to be able to compete with because of price. So we don't necessarily want to be spending our ad dollars there. So being really strategic when we're doing ASIN targeting or these display ASIN targeting campaigns can really help. But at a minimum, I would just reduce the bid, and then just reduce the bid, focus on your best sellers, and then you can review that and see how it goes. So that's that one. And then the other thing that I wanted to go quickly was the adding negative keywords. So really important, especially if your ACOS is high. This is something that you want to do straight away after this call. Go and do it. Really common thing that I find a lot of people aren't doing. So when do I need to be adding negative keywords? If you're running auto campaigns, phrase match campaigns, and broad match campaigns, we want to be having a look at the search term report and weighing up whether this is a keyword that we want to be advertising against. So we've got an auto campaign here. So these ones are notorious for grabbing keywords and just spending. So auto campaigns, they can work really well, but they can also just spend, especially if you're in the US, they can just spend if you're not keeping tabs on them regularly. All right, so we want to go into the search term section. Yeah. And the only downside of this is you can only go back 65 days unless you download the report. So we'll just go back as far as we can. Sort by spend. This one hasn't spent a huge amount, so it's just one click here, one click there. So the first thing you can look at, is there a keyword that's, whether it's relevant or not, just spending a lot of money, getting a lot of clicks and not converting? That can be an example of where you would want to add a negative keyword. Once we've done that, which we don't have any here, they're all sort of spread out. The next thing, we would just want to go through this search term report here and see if there's anything irrelevant or just doesn't make sense for this product or this group of products. This one's a little bit trickier because there are quite a lot of variations. So you've got Aussie animals, there's mermaids, there's a Lego one. But let's just have a look. So this one's actually had a sale. So kids canvas painting minions. So that's quite very specific. One click, one sale. Paint by numbers, colourful animals. That sounds relevant. Having a look at one word keywords, they generally, unless they're super relevant to your product, you don't want to be advertising against them. And you can always have a look and see, what comes up. If someone's typing in Aussie, what are they buying? Sometimes it could be a brand, or could just be a bunch of random things. Okay, so this looks like it might be for a brand called Aussie. So that would be one that potentially we can get rid of. Kids framed wall art. And again, these clicks are super cheap. So you don't necessarily have to, in this case, remove them. But if your ACOS was high, then you would want to be more strict about what you're getting rid of. You want to be more ruthless. Whereas if the ACOS is good, then you can be a bit more lenient and say, oh, this is kind of relevant. Well, we'll just keep an eye on it and let it run a bit longer and see. In Australia, you can be a lot looser with what keywords you're going after. Whereas in the US, you do need to be a lot more targeted. So like the Disney paint by numbers, even though it's not technically Disney, I would perhaps leave that in. Whereas if this was in the States, I would get rid of it because you'd just spend a heap of money. So it does also depend on the marketplace as well. Australia, you can be a little bit looser, and you can it's interesting to see what keywords you can actually get sales for, because there's just less sellers, it's less saturated. So if your ACOS is good and you're in Australia, then just leave it in, because you can actually rank for single word keywords categories in Australia, whereas in the US that's near impossible unless you're spending a lot of money. So finally, just wrapping up, there's two main ways that you can add negative keywords. If it was something like this, Aussie, single, or let's just say Disney, so brands, if we want to, generally in the beginning, you don't want to be bidding on other people's brand names. That can be something that you can add in later as an expansion strategy, but in the beginning, generally it's something that we don't want to bid for. So Disney, let's just say we don't want to bid on Disney for now. We might revisit that later. So you go add negative keyword. And there's two match types. So if it's a brand, or if it's something that's completely irrelevant to your product. So in this instance, this is a paint by numbers kit for kids. There is quite a lot of search volume for paint by numbers kits for adults, which this wouldn't be suitable for. This is probably a little bit too basic for adults. So that would be another example of if you added adult as phrase match, you know, definitely we don't want to show up for when someone's searching for paint by numbers kits for adults. We don't want to be spending money there. That would be an example of negative phrase. We could go Disney, adults, and just add those as phrase. And negative exact is better for when you just want to block a single keyword, but you still want to show for other variations that include that word. So for example, so Aussie could be one, this one as well. So 12 by 12 frame. It's most likely just people looking for, they've got a photo that is that size. They don't want to paint something or buy something for their kids. They're looking for it. It's for a different use. So that would be, those two are really good examples.
That was a video from my regular Monday night Q&A session with the members of the Aussie Online Entrepreneurs. We are a community of over 2,500 e-commerce professionals right around the world. We're the fastest growing e-commerce community right here in Australia, for instance, with sales, by the way, of over $50 million. If you'd like to find out more about what we do, get yourself off to www.aussieonlineentrepreneurs.com.au. That link is in the description. I will see you on the next video. Until then, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.